You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, it's Sunday the 29th of April 2024. Welcome to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And if I'm honest, I haven't done as much as I should have done over the last couple of days in terms of on the podcast 2 days ago. I said about what my plan was, which is all around submitting my manuscript for the English Hikikomori to some agents, and then I basically got 43 pages worth of agents' details to read through to select, and I haven't read any since then, and I'd sort of set myself a deadline of the end of this month, which is today's the 28th, so it's in 2 days' time as a deadline for getting that done. So I suspect I'm going to miss my target, but I think that's fair enough. That's something that will happen occasionally when you write. And actually, I have genuinely had things to do the last few days. So, for example, yesterday was my godson's 14th birthday. So I did the live stream in the morning, and then in the afternoon I went and spent the day with him and his family, and that was really nice because he's 14. Just a really nice kid. I hope he can stay nice through his teenage years, but so far he's just lovely. Anyway, what I'm going to briefly talk about today is not that, because I'm still going to keep doing that, but I think the chances of actually submitting the manuscripts by the deadline I'd set myself are looking rather remote, purely because as well as reading through and selecting the agents, which I probably could do by the deadline, what I'm going to struggle to do is look at what they want, get the cover letter done, so I might have to park that until I'm back, because I'm working from the 1st to 6th of March. Now, I will do the podcast from the 1st to 6th of March, but it won't be as easy to sit down and do all the cover letter and bits and pieces. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going to quickly talk about today is what I'm reading at the moment, because it's a nice thing to do every now and then. And what I'm reading at the moment is a book called The Burning Prince. Let me just double check that's what it's called. No, The Burning God. Sorry, The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. And it's actually the third book in a trilogy known as the Poppy War trilogy. Now, I first came across this author last year when I picked up this massive hardback called Babel, which is a very interesting book. It's set in Oxford University in the 1800s, but it's kind of like a parallel universe. So if you imagine a parallel universe where in the early 1800s, they discover they've discovered magic, and the magic is based on the inconsistencies between in translations. So often a translation is not an exact science. So, for example, in English we say goodbye. In French, the thing that means goodbye is au revoir, but I believe au revoir literally means until next time, or until I see you again. So although it has the same overall meaning, it's not exactly the same. And so there's a magic system that's found a way of exploiting the difference between the literal translations between two languages meaning the same thing. And what they've done is they can then inscribe the two words onto a silver bar, and it'll have some magical properties. Now, there's better examples in the book than what I just gave, because the magic property that it has is usually something to do with that translating inconsistency. Anyway, so you've got driverless carriages in the 1800s. So you've got carts on the street that haven't got horses because they're powered by these silver bars and stuff like that. Queen Victoria came to the throne, I think it's a couple of years after she did in the real world in this book. So yeah, there's a point that we can assume slightly in the past that history. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm just waffling for the moment, and then I shall continue with the writing. But yeah, so there's the sorry, for those listening on the podcast, I'm recording the podcast live on a Twitch stream, and somebody called Petra Anna Marie has just sent me a message saying, just passing by for support, good luck with today's load of work. So thank you for that. So the inconsistencies with the translation are what make the magic work, and it's all about this Chinese lad who doesn't know who his father is, his mother died, and he's dragged back home, or he's dragged to the UK by this professor who is part of this magic team, who's involved in the magic based on these translations. And it turns out he's actually this professor's son, and he's deliberately bred him, for want of a better word, because he wants someone who speaks Mandarin and English, because at the moment nobody has explored the magic possible from the inconsistencies with the translations between Mandarin and English. So it's really interesting. The guy ends up going to university, and then it's I know some people who really didn't get on with Babel as a book, but I absolutely love it. And it then led me to read other stuff by the same author. The next thing I read was called A Yellowface, and she actually sells herself as Rebecca F. Kuang rather than R.F. Kuang in that book. And the reason is, it's a bit like the Ian M. Banks thing. It is in a different genre. So Yellowface is set in the real world. It's actually set within the publishing industry. And I'm guessing people who know how the publishing industry works will get a lot of the, if not jokes, but certainly things that happen in that book more than I do. I enjoyed it. It was good. In fact, I've got to reread it this month next month, because it's there's a local bookshop that has two book clubs, a regular book club and a sci-fi book club. Now, I like both, and because I work and I travel a lot when I work, I choose the book club I join each month based on whether I'm going to be in the country when the actual meeting part takes place. And the sci-fi book club, unfortunately, the meeting is taking place when I'm abroad, so I plump for the other one. Because I've already read the book, I will reread it. But anyway, so I liked that one. But the third, the original book she wrote, the one that got her noticed, was called The Poppy War. Now again, it's an analogy of the Japanese-Chinese wars, but obviously she's not calling them that. So the main characters, the main world is definitely meant to be a variation on China. I mean, there's a map in the book, and geographically it doesn't resemble China, but it's culturally China. In the same way, you could argue that parts of the Lord of the Rings are culturally England, even though, you know, you look at the map and you're trying to work out, that doesn't look like Sussex to me. So I would argue it's that. And then you've got another empire, which is an island empire to the northwest of them. Now, in the books, the main island that all these people live on is crescent-shaped, and it's based on Japan, and when Japan sort of attacked China, and it's horrible in places. I mean, some of the details, well, she got criticised a bit on some fronts, because some of the details of what happens in the war are what the Japanese did. I'm going to say allegedly did, because I don't know my history well enough to know if it's true, but I imagine it probably is, having read what I've read. But allegedly, what some of the things that the Japanese did to the Chinese, they didn't take, it's alleged in the book, certainly the Mughal Empire do not take prisoners. They kill people for fun, they kill babies for sport. It's all rather unpleasant, but it makes for a very interesting read. And the main character has a link to a god and is a shaman and can use fire as a weapon. Literally, it can stream fire. And the trilogy is all about what happens to this character. So in the first book, she's called Rin. In the first book, she's purely a student. She's a student from a poor city in the south that's managed to get into the main academy for warriors and people to become not just warriors but leaders and generals and stuff. And she's managed to get into this war school, but about halfway through her education, there's a war, the Poppy War. In fact, it's the third Poppy War, and the Mughal Empire attack. What's it called? The main guys. It's just really good. It's full of really unpleasant detail. It's full of very believable and interesting characters. And there's threads, even if you didn't know when the first book was published it was meant to be a trilogy, there's enough carried over that isn't explained in the first book for you to know that something else is coming. So the 3 books in the series, The Poppy War, I'm just trying to find the second one on my shelf. I can't see it. Let's see if it's listed in the book. Probably isn't, because it's a first edition. No, it's the first edition. So The Poppy War is book 1, and the third book is called The Burning God. And I can't remember what the middle one's called. Oh, it's got to be listed in the last book, surely. Hang on. This is preparation for you. It literally doesn't say it. That's surprising. Oh, The Poppy War and the Dragon Republic. That's it. I really enjoyed The Poppy War. I enjoyed the Dragon Republic, but it was hard work, and because it's quite unpleasant and scenarios change. And then I'm really enjoying The Burning God, which is the final book in the trilogy. So I think I've read all the major novels by R.F. Kuang now, and I'm a big fan. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. The only reason I'm telling you that as part of this podcast is because I think the things I read and the things I enjoy will almost certainly influence the things that I write. So as much as it seems a bit of a cop-out when this is talking about my writing journey, I think it is relevant to talk about what I'm reading as well. So that's, again, a bit longer than I intended, waffled on a bit more. But yeah, I absolutely recommend Rebecca F. Kuang, or R.F. Kuang, as an author. I have not read, I've read 5 books by her now. I'm reading the 5th as we speak, and I have not read a bad one. So thank you for listening. I'll be back at some point tomorrow. Goodbye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.